Okay, welcome back to the fifth installment of the Nichathan Gaming Speed Speller application creation. And this is getting exciting because we just created everything that we need. Let's make sure we save our scene and we'll go into our scripts now. We want to start editing them. I'm using Visual Studio's 2019 to edit mine, but it shouldn't matter too much. There will be times when you see that you aren't getting the same suggestions as I am, and in that case, look up Unity Visual Studio's lint or autocomplete, things like that, and try to troubleshoot why you aren't. Okay, so here we are. I have my two files, my two C# files, Word and Game Controller. I opened them by double left clicking on them. Okay, so let's start with Word, since that will be our most basic one. With the Word, what do we have? Well, we have two things. We will have a private string m text, and I'm just going to call it m text. Yeah, and then instead of m text, so this is kind of the hardest thing for me in coding, is finding a good name for it, because after this we are going to create a public text object, and I will call it my text object, which means I'm going to call this not mText, but this word. Let's do that. Now, if you see, I'm getting an error here. It says the namespace text could not be found, which means that it doesn't know what this object text is. So, to add it, I will right-click, I will go to Quick Actions and Refactoring, and then I will add using Unity Engine UI. If that option doesn't appear, you can simply come up here to the very top where it says Systems Collection, Collections Generic, Unity Engine, and type yourself using unityengine.ui. Okay, now we want to start setting everything, and it's also good to label things, so I'm going to add some comments. So for this word, this is the word that is associated with this word object. I like to label things because it will help me understand what I did when I come back in a few months' time. Of course, it becomes very hard to word things, especially when you're talking about words and you get into a big paradox. Now for the object text, this is the text object child that we edit on creation of this word. Okay, as for start and update, we do not need those, so we can get rid of them. And let's create our first thing. Our first thing will be called at the very beginning, and it will be called set text. So I'm going to create a public void because there is nothing returned from this method, and I will call it set text. And of course we want to get a text that we want to set it to, so I'll call it string word. Now I'll say this word equals word. And I also want to get our text object text. So I'll say text object dot text equals this word. And this will be used when we create the word object. So for our label, let's say used right after instantiating a word object. Perfect. And now let's create a function to check the text. We want to check if this text is the same as a text that the user typed in. So let's call this public bool because we want to return a boolean true or false value called check text with a string text. And for now, let's say we want to return this word dot equals text. There we go. So if this word is the same as the word that we are checking, then it is true. To make it easier as well, we can add a toLower function to move everything to lowercase. So I will add that. You do not have to add it if you don't want to. Of course, we also want to make the text lower as well. Some things to do would be to verify if it is null as well. So you can say if text equals null or this word equals null, then return false. That way you don't throw an error. Although sometimes errors are good because they tell you where you made a mistake in the code. So as for the description, I will say compares this word with text. Same thing here as well, as we can throw errors, but it will throw its own error. Okay, now for our word object, we just need one more thing, and that is for it to move down. So we want our word to be able to move down as it flows from the top of the screen down to this black line. And to do that, I'm going to create another one. This will be our public boolean because I want to see if it's at a certain point. And I want to say move down. Now to pass into here, I want to get a float, which is a rational number, I believe. And this will be the distance. And then I'll also need a float for the minimum y value that this object can go to. So I want to move the object that this is connected to, so I will say transform to get the transform of the object that this script is attached to, and I will say transform.local position, and I will subtract it from a new vector 3, which is your XYZ graph coordinates, and I'll say 0 and distance, which will move it down by distance every time the move down is called. Then I'm going to return, not transform. I'm going to return the transform dot local position dot y value is less than the minimum y value. So the minimum y value in this case will be this black line, and if the word is below the black line, then we need to return true, which will tell us that the game is over and we have lost. So let's write a description and end this video. So the description for this will be it moves this object down by dist. Then if transform is less than the minimum y value, then return true, else return false. Actually, let's just simplify this and say, oh, my bad. Oh my. Okay, that's not my bad. This is Visual Studio's bad. So I'll say return transform is less than min y. Okay. Of course, you don't need to add comments if you don't want, but I like to. It helps me organize things. If you're a real stickler too, you can even add regions. So I'll call this the variables region. And then I will add one more region, and I will call this the methods. And there you go. Now you have nice pretty code that can be shrunk down to just the variables and the methods. In our next video, we're going to start working on our game controller before we finally put everything together and test it. So as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.